So I want to ask you all, who are your spiritual ancestors? After this song, I imagine a lot of you might be feeling like Sam Cooke is one of your spiritual ancestors. Because when I ask this question, I'm not asking about the ones whose DNA runs through your veins, but the ones whose courage runs through your prayers. The ones whose songs find you even before you reach for the comfort of a tune. UU minister Karen Johnston writes, ancestors who spoke with the bravest fire, they lend us their senses that we may know another world is on her way. The ones who went before us, sacrificing for a future not their own. They are not gone, end quote. They are ever in our midst. I remember the first time I felt that feeling in my own being. I was at a symposium led by Dr. Issei Barnwell of Sweet Honey and the Rock. I know y'all know about Dr. Issei Barnwell. I was in First Unitarian Church of Oakland. It is very similar in style to First Philadelphia that was shown earlier in the Time for All Ages. It's an old church with stained glass windows and intricately carved wood, the kind of sanctuary that sighs and hums even when no one is singing. At this symposium, the gathering was called Our Songs Know Who We Are, which honestly was already preaching even before we started. And when we did start, the first song that Dr. Barnwell sang was this old song that I didn't know it at the time, but it has since sung through me so many times. A charge to keep charge to keep, we have to live our lives glorified. That's this hymn that was written back in 1792, and it was sung every Sunday morning by my great-great-grandmama, Mama Nita, at Mount Zion AME Church. I never heard her sing it while she was alive, but in that UU sanctuary decades later, I heard her through me. I remember thinking, wait a minute. I'm in a Unitarian Universalist church, and I'm singing this old Methodist hymn, and my Black Christian ancestors are using my vocal cords right now. Is that really happening? But in that split second, I doubted, is it appropriate for me to be singing this song? Should I be singing this here? But there was this other voice that was in me that said, yes, you are exactly where you need to be, singing exactly the songs that you need to sing. In that moment, the energy of my ancestors were not asking me to shrink back into the harm of that tradition. They were inviting me to reclaim what had always been mine: song as resilience, faith as rhythm, faith as a charge for me to keep. This is what spiritual ancestors do. They don't trap us in the past. They help heal the harm that tried to trap us there. They help us rewrite the story. And sometimes they rewrite across traditions, from Christianity to Buddhism to Unitarian Universalism, from bloodline to soul line. Like the soulful connection I found in my spiritual ancestor, Tina Turner, y'all. Yes, Tina Turner is Black Buddhist, this female icon who survived violence, oppression, and reinvention and kept on singing. Our stories were vastly different, and yet through hundreds of hours of chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, her voice held me while I healed from military-related moral injuries and layers of internalized oppression. Before I would chant, I would rise early in the morning and do my UU Buddhist ritual before I knew that I was a UU Buddhist. I would read this grounding quote by Henry David Thoreau long before I knew that he was one of ours. He wrote, "In the morning I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and the cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, in which comparison with our modern world is the literature is puny and trivial." And I thought, the audacity of this gentleman bathing his intellect in the cosmogonal. But I loved it. I loved this audacity because I recognized it, and in my own way, I felt that same energy when I bathed my intellect in the Lotus Sutra before chanting with Tina Turner. I would let this vast vision of my sacred Buddhist text remind me that enlightenment is not a private achievement, it is communal. It too is ancestral and ongoing. Sacred texts are conversations across centuries. They are like ancestors in written form. They whisper, remember who you are. Know what you are here to do. And then this ancestor journey became beautifully serendipitous, y'all. Do y'all know this minister, Reverend Dr. Gene Reeves? Oh, I see some people shaking their heads, yes. So he is said to have been one of the ministers who also answered the Dr. King's call to Selma. And he also founded the International Buddhist Congregation in Tokyo and co-edited the Buddhist Kaleidoscope and translated the Lotus Sutra for Western readers like me. And this is the part where I asked if y'all might know him. He was from this church ordained right here. Well, I mean, not in this particular building, because it was in 1961. Wow, indeed. I was literally moved to tears when I discovered this spiritual ancestor who for years I had been reading his sacred texts shaped by his scholarship, and now I learned that not only was he a fellow UU, but he is of this lineage of this very community. Talk about following breadcrumbs. That our very own Reverend Dr. Reeves wrote words that still resonate now. Quote, "I believe that each one of us is called to move beyond our own cliquishness, our own racial and ethnic, national and class smallness, and let our vision of human wholeness become a basis for a more genuine community, a model of what we can be." End quote. Yes. That right there is ancestor mentality. It reminds us that we are not alone in this moment, that we are accompanied. So when you are wondering, how do you meet this hour, hear your ancestors answer in your bones with courage. When you wonder, how do we hold grief and rage and still lead with love, spiritual ancestors answer with song. When you wonder, who are we to attempt to change the world, they whisper, you are the ones that we dreamed of. Spiritual ancestors are relations of the soul. They charge us to keep going when there seems to be no way. They lend us their persistence, their holy audacity, their assurance that the moral arc bends not magically, but because hands like ours are bending it. So I ask you again, who are your spiritual ancestors? Whose words steady you? Whose songs rise up in your chest? Whose courage is braided into your calling? There is wisdom waiting for you to reclaim. There is healing that belongs just to you. And there is a lineage longing to sing out in your voice. Let us be grateful for those who came before us and yet ever live in our midst. And may we live so fully, so courageously, that generations from now will feel our song rise up in their bodies and know who they are. May it be so.
All right. right, the youth might be familiar with the question I have for you today, which is, why are you you? In truth, I spend a lot of time wondering this about you. I mean, how did you come to be who you are? How did the apple fall so far from the tree? How did you escape the closet, or the fire and brimstone, or the oppressive family culture to become the powerhouse that you are? It is a wonder. I mean, how? How did you know what kind of dad you wanted to be if yours was not the role model? How did you know you were going to be a person who spoke up during town hall meetings, who ran for state senate, okay? Who fostered animals, or who marched for freedom? Why are you you? It was my director of religious education at the Third Unitarian Church of Chicago who taught me all about Unitarians who had come before me, such as Ralph Waldo Emerson, and yes, Henry David Thoreau, who invited people to think differently about the nature of God, to find the holy in the natural world, and to use reason to draw my own conclusions, and yes, science too. My religious education teachers taught me about Unitarian writer Louisa May Alcott, who wrote about the lives of women and girls when nobody was writing those stories, and Unitarian Clara Barton, who started the Red Cross as an act of her Unitarian faith. So I was raised with these stories and more in my Sunday school. Therefore, us kids felt like we belonged at the very center of the movement for human progress and for justice. I mean, imagine, as a child, I saw my own place in that interconnected web of existence, clear as daylight. I would too find my moment in the long struggle for freedom, and I would greet that moment like it was a homecoming. Because to be a Unitarian Universalist was to be called to have my own place in the community of prophets and leaders, movers and shakers across history who innovated and expanded society's reach, who contributed their gifts and their ideas and their talents to the common good, who advanced justice and education, all as a marker of their faith, like because they were Unitarians or Universalists. So it would be with me, I assumed. It wasn't until I grew up I learned not everyone felt this sense of lifelong call to become a world maker, a justice bringer, or a person who would make a clear contribution to the communal effort. And it occurred to me recently that while some of your children may be learning about UUs across history who made waves in the ocean of human progress, you may not know your own spiritual ancestors. See, as adults, we lose this religious education if we were not raised in the UU church. Now, your spiritual ancestors, they don't need to be Unitarians or Universalists. They could be Tina Turner, or they could be from the long religious tradition of which you are now a part. That research is yours to take up, perhaps as a spiritual practice or a spiritual discipline, to discover your spiritual ancestors. You don't have to look too hard to find the one who is speaking to you across the ages, beckoning to you to take that next right action. You'll know it by your forefather or your foremother's actions. You see, they have made a path for you. All you have to do is put one foot in front of the other and follow that path. There was a time in college where I wore like a very small picture of Robert Kennedy on a necklace. And I don't really know why, but I just wanted everybody around me to know about Robert Kennedy and know. I felt like the young adults didn't know enough about him. And so I want to invite you to maybe bring little talismans or pictures of your spiritual ancestors so I can meet them, maybe in the receiving line next Sunday. So this week, I was thinking of one person who I had encountered for whatever reason, more than several times throughout my life. It so happens that across my lifetime, I have had the opportunity to run into Reverend Jesse Jackson 4 times. Twice in airports, and once in a hotel in Memphis, and once at a demonstration in Chicago when I was a very young child. I shook his hand at least a couple of those times, and what I remember is that he was both friendly and focused. What does that mean, to have crossed paths on this earth in this life with someone like Reverend Jesse Jackson? Maybe nothing. I don't have to make meaning of it, or perhaps there exists a lineage of protest pastors, of preachers and activists who speak unity into a divided moment, who speak clarity in a time of chaos, who tend to the moral universe as gardeners, planting seeds and pruning back and stepping aside when our time comes. I always thought we were contemporaries, Jesse Jackson and I, crisscrossing on the web of existence. But now I know him as an ancestor, one who is still speaking. If we listen to this ancestor, we hear the truth. If we know this ancestor, we feel the conviction. If we receive this ancestor, we live the continuation of their blessing on earth. I will share with you an excerpt of the 1988 speech he gave, stumping for Michael Dukakis at the Democratic National Convention. I read his words this week as though he had spoken them directly into my ear today. He is also speaking them to you. Listen. You must never stop dreaming. Face reality, yes, but don't stop with the way things are, he said. Dream of things as they ought to be. Dream. Face pain, but love, hope, faith, and dreams will help you rise above the pain. Can you hear him? Use hope and imagination as weapons of survival and progress, but you keep on dreaming. Dream of peace. Peace is rational and reasonable. War is irrational in this age and unwinnable. Saying this to us this morning. He said, dream of teachers who teach for life and not for a living. Dream of doctors who are concerned more about public health than private wealth. Dream of lawyers more concerned about justice than a judgeship. Dream of preachers who are concerned more about prophecy than profiteering. Dream on the high road with sound values. Like he is right behind me, whispering in my ear. I tell you, listen to that voice. Someone is speaking to you from across the ages. It's a musician who you've always loved, but who reminds you today that this machine kills fascists. And what does that mean for your next action? It's that writer who wrote that book you always loved about the fire department, who burned books, is now giving you your assignment. It's that public health physician you once studied who revolutionized global health by providing high-quality care to underserved populations around the world. He is whispering to you now what you should do next. So find your spiritual ancestors. This sermon comes with some homework. Your spiritual ancestors will tell you the work that is yours to do now at this crucial and critical moment, because if you listen, you can hear Martin telling us how to march in peace. You can hear Rosa telling us how to defy the laws that are unjust. Fannie Lou telling us how to lift up our voices in power and song. Francis Allen Watkins Harper telling us how to bridge the gaps in the culture. Listen to their voice and you will know how to meet the movement of our time. So in the words of my spiritual ancestor, Reverend Jesse Jackson, this is how we keep hope alive. He said, we keep hope alive. What'd he say? Keep hope alive. Feel it. Keep hope alive. Let me hear you. Keep hope alive. Join his voice. Keep hope alive.